There's a special corner of suburban hell where HOA board members act like they're the FBI, and my ranch mailbox was apparently their most wanted criminal. For weeks, it kept getting flattened like it owed someone money. No note, no apology, just tire tracks and pure HOA vengeance. So, I grabbed my welding torch and a bit of mischief. Let's just say the next mailbox didn't go down without a fight. Drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from, because this story might make you question how tough your mailbox really is. This all kicked off 8 months ago when I, Ethan Caldwell, bought 5 acres of ranch land in Sagebrush Hollow, New Mexico. After 2 decades of city chaos, cramped apartments, nosy neighbors, and complaints about my music hitting 60 decibels, I was done. I wanted open skies, room to breathe, and the freedom to fix things or raise goats without a permit. I'd spent 15 years repairing industrial equipment and maintaining wind turbines across the Southwest. Now, I craved a quieter life where the biggest issue might be a stubborn tractor or a wobbly fence post. The property was perfect, endless desert views stretching to the mountains, silence so deep you could hear your own pulse, and space to build whatever I wanted without asking anyone's permission. The previous owner, an old rancher, had kept the basics functional but skipped modern frills. That suited me fine. I loved the challenge of reviving old systems. The barn needed work, the fences needed mending, and the house could use a facelift, but those were projects I was excited to tackle. There was just one problem I missed during the inspection. My slice of paradise sat right next to Oak Ridge Heights, the most uptight, rule-obsessed HOA in New Mexico. Picture my rustic ranch, weathered fences with character, a barn straight out of a western, and sprawling, untamed land. Bordering a Stepford-style subdivision where beige was a lifestyle, lawns were synchronized, and every mailbox looked like it was ordered from the same catalog. My property was a rebel in their world of conformity, and that apparently drove someone nuts. That someone was Margaret Ellison, the HOA president who ran her domain like a military general. Research later revealed she'd ruled for 3 terms, strong-arming property owners to either conform or leave. When my mailbox got smashed the first time, I thought it was a fluke. I was fixing the goat pen behind the barn when I heard a crash, tires screeching, and an engine speeding off. By the time I reached the front, my metal mailbox was a crumpled mess, mail scattered like confetti, and tire tracks pointed straight toward Oak Ridge Heights. I figured it was a texting teen or an elderly driver's mistake. Accidents happen, right? I cleaned up, bought a new mailbox, and moved on, but exactly 7 days later, same time, same destruction. Same tire tracks, same silence. 2 identical accidents in a week. That stretched coincidence to the breaking point. Something was off. So, when I installed mailbox number 3, I added a $50 trail camera, the kind hunters use for deer. If some reckless driver was targeting mailboxes, I'd have proof for insurance or the cops. The third attack came right on schedule, and the camera caught it all. A white BMW sedan slowed, then floored it, slamming my mailbox with clear intent. The driver backed up, hit it again for good measure, then got out to admire the wreckage. It was a woman in her early 40s, short gray hair, business suit, Saturday morning. She inspected the twisted metal with a smug, triumphant look, like she'd just won a war, then drove off calmly. The footage was crystal clear, and it made my blood boil. This wasn't an accident. It was a calculated attack. Zooming in, I got a good look at her face. A quick search of the Oak Ridge Heights HOA website confirmed it. Margaret Ellison, 3-term president, former police logistics coordinator, and my new nemesis. Her bio bragged about upholding community standards and protecting property values. This wasn't random vandalism. This was a deliberate campaign by someone with serious control issues. The next morning, I walked to Oak Ridge Heights for a civilized chat. I'm not confrontational by nature. I'd rather fix things than fight. I figured showing her the footage would lead to an apology, maybe compensation, and we'd sort it out like adults. Her house was a suburban showcase, perfect lawn, geometric flower beds, spotless driveway. I rang the bell, rehearsing my diplomatic pitch. Margaret answered in another business suit, her expression cold but polite. Miss Ellison, I'm Ethan Caldwell, your neighbor from the ranch. I'm here about my mailbox. I have footage of your BMW hitting it, and I'd like to work this out. I pulled out my phone to show the video, expecting embarrassment or at least concern. Instead, she straightened up, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "Mr. Caldwell, I'm fully aware of your mailbox situation, and yes, I removed those structures." No shame, no apology, just a flat confession, like she was reporting the weather. "Your ranch disrupts our community's aesthetic harmony and property values." Those mailboxes drew attention to the inconsistency. I stood there, stunned. "So, you admit to destroying my property multiple times because you don't like how my ranch looks?" She didn't flinch. Instead, she handed me a thick, color-coded folder, green tabs for grass violations, red for fence issues, yellow for escalation protocols. It was like a military dossier. "This documents 47 violations of county ordinances, state regulations, and aesthetic guidelines," she said. "I've been patient, but my patience has limits." The folder was obsessive: photos of my grass, too tall, fence posts, misaligned by inches, even my barn's weathered siding, non-compliant color. Some pictures were taken from inside my property, meaning she'd been trespassing. "This is harassment," I said, handing it back. "You're destroying my property and spying on me. I could call the police." Her smile was icy. "Mr. Caldwell, I know the legal system here. I know what's actionable and what's legitimate community advocacy. I suggest you relocate to a more suitable area. It'll be easier for everyone." Walking back, her folder under my arm, I realized this wasn't just about mailboxes. This was a war to force me off my land. She'd driven out 2 other families with the same tactics, and she expected me to cave. But she'd miscalculated. I'd spent my career solving impossible problems, and I wasn't about to let a clipboard dictator ruin my dream. The next morning, Margaret unleashed her full campaign. A letter was taped to my door, citing my lawn at 3.75 inches, violating a 3.5-inch ordinance. I called the county clerk. The rule existed but hadn't been enforced in 15 years. I mowed to comply. The next day, another letter: my flag was 4 inches too low. Then my blue flower pots weren't desert appropriate. Every morning at 6:30, her BMW crept by, photographing, measuring with a laser, taking notes. She was relentless. 2 weeks later, Deputy Tom Rivera showed up, looking drained. "Ethan, I'm here about complaints, noise, suspicious activity, welfare checks." "I know it's not you. I've known Margaret since we were kids. She's fixated on your property. I can't act unless she's stalking or threatening, but this is getting out of hand." The breaking point was 3 letters in one day: non-regulation gravel, a mailbox post 2 inches too tall, and a photo of hay bales behind my barn, taken from inside my property. She'd trespassed again. That night, I studied her folder. Every regulation had wiggle room, and if she wanted a bureaucratic war, I'd build a mailbox to end it. That I spent a week researching mailbox regulations. The code required structural soundness and weather resistance, but didn't cap durability. My garage became a workshop. The new mailbox looked standard: aluminum box, wooden post. But the post was a steel beam buried in concrete, clad in cedar. The box had a steel frame filled with concrete. From the road, it looked ordinary. Up close, it was a fortress. Installation took 3 days, and I worked during Margaret's surveillance passes, waving cheerfully to keep her curious. 3 days after completion, I heard an engine rev and a crash that rattled my windows. I ran outside with my phone. Margaret's BMW was steaming, hood crumpled, while my mailbox stood untouched. She climbed out, shaken, inspecting her totaled car, shattered headlights, leaking fluids. Then she stared at the pristine mailbox, her face cycling through confusion, anger, and fear. "Car trouble, Miss Ellison?" I called, keeping my tone helpful. "Need a tow?" She glared, climbed into her grinding wreck, and limped away, leaving a trail of fluids. But Margaret didn't quit. She escalated, using a megaphone at 6 a.m. to broadcast my violations across the desert: Ethan Caldwell's non-compliant fence spacing, landscaping, and oversized mailbox. It woke kids 3 streets away, sparking complaints about her noise. Deputy Tom returned, exasperated. "She's on public property, legal hours. I can't stop her unless it's criminal. 2 days later, her message turned threatening. Ethan Caldwell must remove his non-compliant mailbox within 72 hours or face community action. Game on. I built Mailbox 3, identical looking but loaded, HD cameras, motion sensors, and a paint system triggered by impacts over 15 miles per hour. Bright orange, biodegradable paint, impossible to remove quickly. I tested it to ensure it only activated on deliberate hits. 4 days later, cameras live, motion sensors pinged. Margaret's BMW charged at 43 miles per hour. The impact was epic. The mailbox shook but held, and the paint system doused her car in orange, coating everything, windows, roof, doors. She tried to drive off but, blinded by paint, swerved in circles before stopping. Covered in orange, she looked like a furious jack-o'-lantern. Kids laughed, neighbors filmed, and Margaret screamed, "I'm the HOA president. I have authority to remove non-compliant structures." My cameras caught every word. Deputy Tom arrived, shaking his head. The paint system was legal, and Margaret's confession was damning. That evening, I sipped a beer on my porch, admiring my unscathed mailbox. Margaret's orange BMW sat in her driveway, a neon monument to her defeat. Within 48 hours, neighbors demanded an emergency HOA meeting. The community center overflowed. Margaret sat up front, orange-tinted hair betraying her scrubbing efforts. I played the footage, her deliberate attack, the paint explosion, her confession. Silence fell. Then questions hit her like a storm. How long had she harassed residents? What other abuses? Why didn't the board stop her? Others shared stories of her intimidation. The vote was unanimous. Margaret was ousted as president, effective immediately. The board apologized to me and promised to review her citations. Margaret left silently, her reputation shattered. 2 weeks later, her house was for sale. She moved to Albuquerque, fleeing the "Orange House" nickname kids gave her property. Deputy Tom visited, chuckling. She lost her mind over a mailbox. Ethan destroyed her car, her credibility, and left town. All for this. He nodded at my mailbox. 8 months later, my ranch is the peaceful haven I dreamed of. The mailbox stands proud, with faint orange stains as a badge of victory. The new HOA president, Mrs. Larson, a retired teacher, believes in live and let live. My mailbox is now a tourist draw. People snap photos with the paint bomb mailbox. I'm considering a plaque. Sagebrush Hollow Historic Mailbox, site of the Great Orange BMW incident. Last week, a guy from Arizona emailed me about his HOA feud over a chicken coop. He wants a Sagebrush Hollow solution. I'm tempted to help, maybe start a side hustle. Fortress Defense Consulting, we build the box they never see coming. Want to hear about Operation Fortress Chicken and the Great Arizona Backyard War? Drop a comment with your thoughts and where you're watching from. Then check out the video for the full saga. It's wilder than you think. If you like this HOA story, so subscribe the HOA Tales Unraveled for more.